Welcome to your lacrosse ball guide. Today we're going to talk about using the lacrosse ball on a few different parts of the body. We are starting off with the feet. The lacrosse ball is an amazing tool for getting rid of aches and pains throughout your body, especially the feet, because it is the foundation at which everything starts. If you're having knee or even hip issues, don't be surprised if your pain is coming from your feet. I'm starting at the arch of the foot here. And when you're doing any part of your body, you can hang out there for a minute to 2 minutes, maybe even 3 minutes, depending on how much time you have. Notice the pace at which I'm going at here. I'm not rushing any part of this process. I'm letting the lacrosse ball penetrate the muscle tissue, and I'm breathing and relaxing. And here, I'm even getting into the toes. So in the first, the big toe, second and third toe, the fourth and fifth toe, and then I go back to the bottom of the foot. Now we're moving on to the calves. So when it comes to rolling out the calves, you're going fishing for the most tender and tight spots. And once you find those spots, notice how I mobilize the ankle, which is a fancy way of saying move your ankle around while you're applying pressure on the tight spots on your calves. You will thank me later. Your calves are going to feel so much better after this. Because the lacrosse ball is small, I'm not moving the ankle excessively. And what you'll notice I just did there is I cross one leg over the other. That applies more pressure on the lacrosse ball so that you get more pressure on the calf muscle. So if you need to apply a little bit more pressure, you can do that by putting the other leg on top. So find your spots, go fishing, mobilize the ankle, and hang out there for about 2 minutes as we get ready to go on to the next part of the body. So the next part of the body that we're going to work on is the hips. So the glutes, that carries a lot of stress, especially if you're sitting in awkward positions for a long time, standing in awkward position for a long time. Notice where I place the lacrosse ball right outside of that hip crevice. And I am going to find that spot right on where my back pocket would be. And notice how I drop the leg of the side that I'm working on. So I'm going fishing, looking for tight areas around the hips and the glutes. Remember to stay off of bone. If you feel any, numbness or tingling, you're pressing on a nerve. If you feel the ball on the bone, you definitely don't want to do that. So keep the pressure on the muscle tissue and mobilize the joint by moving the leg in any direction you can think of, really. So go fishing, look for those spots that are sore, tight, hang out there for about 2 minutes or so, and breathe. Notice how I extend that leg. I'm repositioning. And now we are going to go on to the traps. So if you have really tight shoulders and really tight neck, then this is definitely a great place to start. Notice where I place the lacrosse ball. I'm about to switch it on the other side so that you guys can get a better view. And I am going to mobilize that right arm, take that arm in literally any direction that I can think of. I like doing this from the ground, even though you can do it from the wall, mainly because when you're parallel to the ground, you have most of your weight going towards that lacrosse ball. And this really gets that muscle really good. You get a lot more weight and more pressure on it, so you get a little bit more of a release. And you don't have to work hard to keep the ball on the spot that you want to keep it on. Sometimes I use that left arm to kind of keep that ball in the spot that I want it to be in. And now I'm going fishing a little bit more. I'm going fishing, exploring, looking for other tight areas that are, on my traps and shoulders. And from here, we're going to move on to the hip flexors. I call the hip flexors the pocket muscle because if it's hard to figure out where the hip flexor is, just think about where your pocket is. Wherever your pocket is, that's where you're going to put the ball. And I'm about to switch sides so you guys get a better view here. So remember, we're talking pocket muscle. and I am applying pressure on that hip flexor as I'm rolling up and down. And then once I find the spots that are really sore, really tight, really achy, I'm gonna hang out there for about 2 to 3 minutes on each side. This is really beneficial for any lower back issues that you're having, any hip stiffness that you're experiencing. Your hip flexor is a major hip muscle. It works every single day, but we're probably not releasing it every single day, aren't we? So this is definitely an important muscle that you want to focus on. Hopefully this guide was helpful for you, and the lacrosse ball will become your new best friend. I will see you guys in the next one.